What's up? Welcome in, everyone, to Here's What I Say podcast. Sorry, we took Christmas off. I hope everyone's cool with that. But otherwise, we are ready to get going again. We got the squad here, right, Chapman, hanging out here in More America. We got Hoover up in the 918. John, Christmas, holidays, all the travel. Are you locked back in, done traveling to and fro, doing all that stuff?
New Year's Eve's got me feeling some kind of way as we record this on the 31st. So I thought I'd get kind of nostalgic about Auld Lang Syne and the team that I used to cover that would take me to exotic bowl locales and fun trips. And boy, it's been, when you combine fun trip and a game they had a chance to win, it's been since 2017, the Rose Bowl, that Oklahoma has been really up there involved in a game that they had a chance to win.
Yeah, it's a. I'm just gonna call it. I know the postseason streak, the bowl streak's over now. Even though you made the college football playoff, because who cares about bowl streaks anymore? Not me. Got Carson. Carson, you made your way back down to Texas, back up. Everything good. How was your Christmas?
Yeah, it was good. It was a nice, relaxing time with the family. Watched a lot of football, still cranked out some stories. So just a very mellow few days in Liberty Hill. Not Austin anymore. Don't worry. My parents no longer live in the city limits, so nothing to worry about there. But it was a good time.
Something about Austin city limits. You can only go for 2 weekends, though. Aber is not done with Christmas. Ryan Aber, who lives like a hop, a skip, and a jump from me, is like preparing for his last one. So I'm glad you guys got it in before 2026. So it's technically Christmas 2025.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of years ago. We didn't go to like mid-January. So
nice.
It's when you get blended families and kids that have activities, then scheduling gets a little bit more difficult. But we're able to squeeze it in just a few hours before New Year's.
We got you beat, Aber. We did ours on the 30th one year, 30th of January with my brother. It's like, come on, people. We should have opened these a month ago.
Nice. At that point, it's just a Valentine's Day gift.
Yeah, I was about to say Valentine's Day cards, love is in the air, all that stuff. Well, speaking of trying to be under the gun and slide things in, Transfer Portal officially opens on Friday, which means that Oklahoma's got a lot of stuff they've got to get to. We're still waiting on a lot of guys that you would classify as either back into the too deep or maybe not on the too deep to look around and do the yearly. We know this. Every program goes through this. Hey, I've got 1 year left. I don't think I'm going to play here. Can we hop in? Can we not? All that stuff. Depending on if you count Jaden Gibson, who was announced as not part of the program in October or not, the Sooners have either 11 or 12 players who have announced their intentions either officially or have reportedly said, hey, I'm going to throw my hat in the name of the Transfer Portal. That list is as follows. Jaden Gibson, as we mentioned, Kendall Dolby, Kobe McKenzie, Isaiah Autry-Dent, Caden Helms, Jacob Sexton, Javante Barnes, Marcus Wimberly, Troy Everett, Jacob Snyder, Luke Baklenko, and Devon Jordan. Baklenko and Jordan, the 2 Wednesday reports. We're recording right now at about noon, so if the world caves in, you're like, hey, you're not talking about this guy. Well, it hasn't happened yet at the start of recording. I'll open this up, guys. Usually we have, I think we've kind of got to the spot, if you're not canning a coach or not moving around, stuff like that, everyone gets about a surprise per portal season. And it feels like this year the 2 ranking candidates might be Kobe McKenzie and Marcus Wimberly for 2 very different reasons. Wimberly, someone who, by the time we had regrouped and summer ball was over, and you'd gotten to fall camp, shoulder injury, out for the year, 4 years of eligibility left, never got to see what Wimberly was. But Kobe McKenzie, obviously the biggest name that probably not on the first list you would have put together, but especially with Oklahoma having so many questions still at linebacker, that one I think is maybe the most interesting name that's entered thus far.
Yeah, I would somewhat agree with that. Kobe McKenzie, a guy who had established himself, a guy who had kind of, gotten into the community of Oklahoma football, engaged to a legend in the OU softball family. I mean, you look at him and you see from his recruiting story to, I'm committed to Oklahoma, to, oh, wait, Lincoln Riley left. Okay, I'm going to Texas. Oh, who's this Brent Venables guy? Oh, I like Brent Venables. I'm going back to Oklahoma. That whole scenario, that whole chapter, you would think is a lockdown, Sooner for life. He's not ever going anywhere. And here we are. He's got a year left of eligibility, and he's in the portal. But you're right. I think Wimberly is another one just because he's so young and so unproven. He had an injury that couldn't overcome. And when that kind of thing happens, it's a surprise to us on the outside. We see a guy that hasn't done anything yet and he already wants to leave, right? But guys get, when they're injured, when they're young, when they're not playing, they get a lot of information from outside. They get a lot of communication from Uncle Bob and, Cousin Pete and my best friend back home. And they're just like, oh, maybe I should go home. Maybe I should find a place that's closer to home. Or they just get homesick. I mean, this is not the most uncommon thing, but Wimberly is a guy that I thought was going to stick around for a little bit longer than this.
Yeah, especially for someone that, as you mentioned, who just never got off the ground, never really got going. So, Carson, here's an interesting discussion. Now, maybe with the state of the linebacker room, we still have not seen any announcement either way from Kip Lewis as far as NFL or no. Owen Heineke, I feel bad for him because the NCAA has broken for the winter, it seems. Basically, if you've seen the Owen Heineke stuff, it's been covered by now, but you have to accept your Senior Bowl spot to have it. If he can come back, he can rescind it. All that's fine. Kobe, maybe the obvious one as far as production goes, just because he would have been a starting linebacker, assuming Kip or Owen cannot return. Maybe he got his job taken by the end of the year. But Devon Jordan is a guy that huge sack in the Alabama game, big rotational piece. Those are the guys that I'm always interested in. Like Devon Jordan, Jacoby Johnson. Hey, you're not going to start over Cortland or Eli. Are you cool with the rotational role? Do you want to go be a starter somewhere? I never know how to gauge those decisions because I don't think anyone is wrong with whatever they want to do there.
Yeah, he is someone that I was very impressed with in his snaps this year. I mean, a huge jump in playing time from his freshman year to his sophomore year. And Bama is the one that sticks out, obviously, had that fourth quarter sack on Ty Simpson. That was a huge play. But he just seemed like such a strong depth piece to the secondary. But you have to look at, like you said, Eli Bowen, Cortland Guillory, two younger guys that are already stars for this team. When would Devon Jordan get his chance to be the guy? I'm not sure it would have come. So you can't really fault a guy like that for wanting to explore when he's been a competitive defensive back in the SEC. He's going to be able to land at another really good program. Oklahoma probably just doesn't, barring like an injury or something like that, or a surprising portal addition, probably doesn't have the role for Jordan to be that guy. But you look at maybe another SEC program, someone else in the Big 12 maybe. I definitely think he's going to be a big contributor wherever he does land.
Aber, technically the biggest loss so far, or the biggest position group that's been hit, is the offensive line. They've had 4 guys headed to the portal. Isaiah Autry-Dent, someone that been banged up, never got underway. Jacob Sexton, someone that unfortunately at every turn gets banged up. Troy Everett, a guy that I don't think he's still heard back on his medical waiver request yet. The last time we had talked to him was the Monday of LSU week. That's one where it feels like if I want to play football, I need to enter the portal. We'll see that on the other side. And then you get Luke Baklenko, someone who brought in last offseason to be like a swing tackle depth piece. Never really played. Like he played 5 games, but never really actually was a guy for the future or anything like that. This is one of those situations of 4 guys, a starter or starting experience with Jacob Sexton. It looks really bad on the ledger, but is this panic mode for Bill Beanbo, or are they cool and is this kind of expected?
No, none of those individually was really unexpected to me. I mean, a couple of those guys had just dealt with injuries and sort of, seemed to be just a lot of bad luck. I mean, Jacob Sexton, you think about his career arc, and it seems like every year he was getting hurt at some point. I mean, think about that bowl game a few years ago down in Orlando. You think about just the way his career unfolded with Troy Everett. I would be stunned if the NCAA didn't allow him that hardship and give him another year. And sort of the same thing. I mean, it's easy to forget now just because Everett started the opener that by the end of that game, he had sort of been replaced at center even without the injury. And then the injury happens supposedly a few days later, and he's out for the season. Isaiah Autry-Dent, a guy who, like you said, never really took off, had some injury issues as well. And then Luke Baklenko was sort of a fringe type of guy, contributor. But they were going to have to add in the portal at offensive line anyway to at least add some depth at some certain positions, especially I think on the interior there. But certainly this will kick up things for Bill Bedenbaugh, and as great as his reputation has been, it's getting time where these guys now the freshmen and redshirt freshmen that they had this year, certainly a ton of expectation for them and hope, promise for the future. But they need to be really productive and hit on some of these guys in the portal in order to beef up that offensive line.
I'll add real quick, guys, to this offensive line take with a quick name. I was just this morning listening to the Oklahoma Breakdown podcast, and they're not the most. They're the podcast that I was listening to is not the most up to date. Doesn't have the latest guys entering or leaving or whatever. So this might be old information, it might be outdated information, but when he was kind of just recapping the offensive line needs, Gabe Eichert threw out Jake Taylor, which, again, wouldn't be a surprise. He's been a guy that's been hurt since he got here. But every year he's up at the top of the depth chart. Every year he's right there in the two deep, and he's ready to contribute. And every year he gets hurt. So, again, it wouldn't surprise me if he got in the portal. He's a fourth year junior from Las Vegas, so he's probably got lots of other opportunities, but that would be another name I would think if Gabe said it, Gabe's pretty plugged in, probably going to happen.
If he's on the team, he's going to get hurt. Sorry, Jake Taylor, but you've not ever been able to stay healthy. It's like Gentry Williams, right? Like coming into the year, all offseason we talked about, hey, if you get anything from him, that's awesome, but you can't go into this year game planning that's a roster spot that you can use or that will be available for 12 games. And Gentry was able to play, and Gentry got hurt. You know what I mean? Like it's just not anybody's fault. It's just unfortunate. I think we've all seen this enough. And what you're looking at, though, is it is a strong foundation, assuming that everyone that's like a meaningful contributor, talking about Michael Fasusi, Ryan Foje, Eddie Pierre-Louis, Jake Michael, you get those four guys back, you go out and you target a top-end interior offensive lineman to fill the Bechuiwu role, be your fifth guy. If you can keep, for me, the two biggest priorities past those guys are keeping Logan Howland and Heath Ozida, because that means that Logan Howland gives you a swing tackle with SEC starting experience. Heath Ozida gives you a swing guard with SEC starting experience who have played under Bill Bedenbaugh. That, to me, is more important than anyone that has left so far, like a Jake Taylor, someone like that, Aber.
Yeah, just got to add, flipping through social media, and Pete Thamel is reporting that Michael Hawkins Jr. is in the portal. So another portal edition, or intends to enter the portal, excuse me. So not incredibly surprising, given the fact that he had played as a freshman some when Jackson Arnold struggled, and then clearly John Mateer is their guy next year. So again, not surprising, but another addition for the Sooners in the portal.
Yeah, more than anything, that tells me that there's not been like an official announcement for John Mateer. Not that I think that he really needs to have one. The injury killed any, I thought, like actual question about are you going to the NFL or not, stuff like that. But that to me screams that John Mateer back in Norman, not official, stuff like that. Again, not like I don't think anyone was ever panicked about that, but losing Michael Hawkins Jr., I hope that, everyone's Twitter feed is going to be way less interesting during football games because, he'll be great.
That's one of the reasons why I think this is actually a little bit of a surprise, because his dad posted, Mike Hawkins, senior, posted yesterday, and I retweeted it, just a quick workout video of Mike going through some leg day or hip day or whatever it was. Basically saying putting in the grind, putting in the time. And I thought, oh, that's a cool tweet. That's, that gives Sooner fans a little bit of hope. And here we are 24 hours later and he gone.
He also tweeted during the season that it was just politics why his son didn't play, despite the fact that he was absolutely atrocious against Kent State. So, congrats there. Enjoy it. I'm sure Brady Trantham has thoughts on that, but good thing he's on the podcast today. Carson, that was something that with Bo Bentley coming in, there was so much made of the Jaden O'Neal, Bo Bentley, Ben Arbuckle being a choose. Like, I feel like there's a lot of pressure of if starting quarterback's coming back, and your offensive coordinator did a really good job to, like, say nice things about you and try to work with you, but he picked his guy in that next upcoming class. This is just life with quarterbacks in the portal these days, right? Whether you love it, hate it, it's not a knock on anybody's stick-to-itiveness. This is just only one quarterback plays, and this is life in the portal with quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's just simply that quarterback room is going to be too deep, assuming Mateer does come back. With him, Bo Bentley, who's obviously well regarded as one of the better quarterbacks in the 2025 class, or 2026, excuse me. But having those two guys and then having guys further down the depth chart like Neubauer, Jet New, there really isn't a spot for Hawkins with Bentley presumably taking that number 2 spot. And it really is just this day and age in college football. I think he is definitely the athlete that he's going to be able to find a home, whether that's at a group of 5 team, maybe backing up somewhere else at another Power 4 school. He's definitely gonna get some attention in the portal just because of, I think his ceilings maybe, I wouldn't say it's particularly high, but his athleticism at least gives him some upside that I think some decent programs are going to take a look at him. But yeah, he really just kind of lost his role at OU, even though he didn't see a ton of playing time the last year.
It'll be really interesting, and Hawkins is maybe a good conduit for this. It's good that it's not an Oklahoma problem this year. They got John Mateer, all that stuff, but when you look at the portal for quarterbacks, it's going to be really, really fascinating to see where this carousel stops spinning. I'm just looking at the On3 quarterback portal rankings right now. Sam Levitt in the portal, no clear direction, I don't think, as far as where he is. Byron Brown for USF probably getting up at Auburn. Mestamaker going to Oklahoma State. But you got Josh Hoover, Dylan Viola, Sorsby, Lagway, Rocco Beck, Deuce Knight, a former 5-star that didn't really get much run. Bo Perbula, a guy. Aiden Childs, who a couple years ago was all the rage coming out of Oregon State. That didn't really go well as far as his time at Michigan State and all that. I'm really fascinated with it seems like we've seen programs, and Oklahoma's one of these, that has shifted and said, hey, our number one priority when it comes to portal stuff is going to be retaining a bunch of talent. And so maybe the offensive line portal or the defensive line portal or the linebacker portal or whatever is not as rich full of names as it was 2 or 3 years ago as far as just like top end quality. I am kind of curious though this is a really tough portal situation for a guy like Michael Hawkins Jr., who has a couple of games of tape in the 2024 season where everyone's going to look at that and understand all the context of offensive line banged up, OC that got canned, all that stuff. But then this year he really only has one game and then like a handful of quarters elsewhere. It'll be fascinating just to see what a guy like that, who in some ways maybe like a Deuce Knight benefits from not playing because you can still sell the hope of I'm a 5-star, I was in a crappy situation, pay me all the money. I just wonder what that ends up being, because it's you have some top names, Tech, Miami, Indiana, going to be like portal hunting for quarterback. I just don't know what that means for like a Michael Hawkins Jr. Where is even a realistic target up and down the realm of college football for him to pop out of the portal on the other side?
Yeah, here's a question for you related directly to that. It's going to be so interesting to watch because just shoot 2 years ago, right? Like you mentioned, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, a guy like Levitt, a guy like Hoover, right? Of course, the Hoover would. A guy like Raiola or Lagway or the kid from Cincinnati, Sorsby, they would call Oklahoma. They would call Lincoln Riley, and they would say, Coach, you got space on your roster for a guy like me? And the coach would go, yeah, we got space. Come on down. We got space. Now it's completely different. Now it's all different. Coach, you got space on your payroll for a guy like me? What's your price? We're starting at $3 million. Yeah, we'd see $3 million. I mean, we've already got a quarterback committed to $3 million. We got a high school kid coming in at 1.5. So we're just out of our price range. Sorry. That's just amazing to me how that's changed like that.
Yeah, well, it's what the reality of, I think that we all have talked about this years and years ago, that to a certain extent, what is the return on investment for the donors that pump and pump and pump money when every year there's only one set of donors that's going to be truly happy at the end of the year, right? Whoever wins the national title. I think there's hope that the rev share, being able to have access to $20+ million a year or whatever the numbers fluctuate and end up being, that can help schools be less reliant on the donor base, stuff like that. But I still think you're going to see like a handful of those guys, like you're saying, like if it's Sorsby going to Tech, his girlfriend who plays volleyball going to Tech, that makes a lot of sense. If you're talking about like a Josh Hoover going to Indiana or whoever Miami's bidding for, like stuff like that, it's like okay, they're going out there, they're in the market, they're splashing around. But you look around and go, suddenly there's a bunch of spots that are going to need quarterbacks, and there's not a bunch of spots that have 1 million or 2 million. It makes it really, really fascinating and makes it kind of interesting just to see what is everyone's relationships. Now, I guess the good news for Michael Hawkins Jr. He has like 7,000 quarterbacks coaches just by pure happenstance of being at Oklahoma the last couple of years and having a lot of coaches run through that are going to speak really highly of him because everything you hear behind the scenes, great worker, great kid, does everything he can, you know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see what that network looks like there. It'll be interesting to see if he wants to jet set all around or if he wants to like try to stay closer to home in Texas or something like that, Carson, too.
I am going to make a bold prediction that the North Texas Mean Green are led by a former Sooner quarterback next year, whether that is Michael Hawkins Jr. or Jackson Arnold. I mean, you mentioned Deuce and I at least having the benefit of not having played a lot with five-star expectations. Jackson Arnold has played a lot with those expectations, and he hasn't been good. He's got to be looking for something at the Group of 5 level. You would think North Texas would be a good fit just because of where he's from. Same with Hawkins also being from that Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I have no inside intel about this, but I am predicting a former Sooner quarterback in Denton.
They had a former Sooner quarterback last year before, Chandler Morris. I mean, the kid's been everywhere.
Also,
I was going to say, can
Nick
Chandler Morris find another year of eligibility and just bounce back to Denton?
That could work. It's Nick Everett. Where is Nick Everett going to go? Is he going to be the next? Never mind. He's in the portal again. Shout out to UConn. And
hey, you know who else is in the portal and Oklahoma needs a running back? Gavin Sawchuk.
I mean, he has family connections in the roster, right?
I'm just saying.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I also don't know if that would be. I don't really know what like what this front office is looking for. It's almost like a recruiting reset. When you get a new OC or a new position coach, some guys are like very much like we knew by the end of the Alex Grinch days, right, Aber, that for corner or safety, they were looking for track speed, height, arm length. Didn't matter if you could actually play football or tackle. When you get to like this other, like I don't know what OU's front office is looking for when it comes to is Gavin Sawchuk like a running back they'd want? Does he have like are they looking for top end speed like what you thought you were getting with Jade? Nah, I don't know. It's going to be really, really fascinating for a couple of these positions because like tight end, they just want like living, breathing bodies who have played actual football before. But at receiver, if they get Isaiah Satania back, it's a very specific like, what do you want? Do you want a big body guy to go with it? At running back, what do you want to supplement Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock and whoever the heck else is staying out of that running back room? Who there have been no announcements, and I don't know if any of us would expect Taylor Tatum or Jaden Ott to be on the roster next year.
Y'all got any more of them Derrick Henrys laying around? When you say, "What do you want?" I want one of them. I want one of those guys.
Yeah, it is going to be fascinating to see what kind of running backs that they go after because we know Xavier Robinson, if he's healthy, he can be productive. We've seen him, do it. Torrey Blaylock had a lot of good signs this year, but they need to add somebody who's one. They need to beef up the offensive line, which is what we talked about earlier, to help the running game. But two, I think they need to add some more dynamic running backs. I think they need the speed. We'll see, what kind of direction that they go, but it is really interesting, given the situation with, Jim Nagy and Ben Arbuckle, what do they like? DeMarco Murray, what happens to him if he's, we'll see ultimately if he returns, because obviously they've struggled at that position for several years, but they've generally liked the recruiting aspect of things from him. So does his philosophy change a little bit in the portal to try to, get somebody who can be a big time impact immediately, especially after missing so hard last year on Jaden Ott? Although I'm sure somebody on here is going to say that, hey, Jaden Ott can still be productive for the Sooners. But seriously, just really, I think as much as any position, that's going to be something to look at, and what kind of things that they prioritize out of their running backs, just because of just so much need there, virtually in every category.
Unshocking, but in the wake of Michael Hawkins Jr. hitting the portal, Malik Hawkins has announced that he's going to hit the portal as well. So this is peeling back the curtain. This is what it's like on the fly. Hey guys, when we watch this on Who's YouTube channel, why is Ryan always on his phone when other people this that? Well, that's because while we podcast, our world stops and you have things like that spinning around. So it'll be really, really interesting. And Aber, kind of like you touched on, it's so weird. Normally we'd be sitting here going, okay, today and tomorrow, even though guys have till mid-January to get into the portal, everyone knows you want to be in the portal immediately so that you can't wait for all these spots across the country to get gobbled up. So these next 48 hours would normally be a pretty big day for the entrance being announced, all that stuff. You kind of hit like a little bit of a simmer at Christmas. Part of that too, though, is I think a lot of people are looking, is Joe John Finley going to return next year? Is DeMarco going to return next year? Is Emmett Jones going to return next year? Have had no words, been all quiet on the Western Front, either way for that. And so that would kind of be just interesting. I know that we're in the world of front office staffs, things like that, but if the portal opens on Friday, it is a very logical question for anyone visiting Norman to say, and oh, by the way, I know that Ben Arbuckle's like the OC. I know that Brent Venables is the guy up top. Who is my position coach? I don't know. It's kind of a weird. I understand Christmas, but also it's one of those things where you kind of want that to go, kind of want it to not. But up until then, it's kind of full speed ahead there. Guys, as we take this step back, we talked about all the entrance, things like that. Carson, if you were looking at, I think there's a big list, like let's just say general needs, at least a wide receiver, 3, maybe 4 offensive linemen, a couple of tight ends, need a running back to round that thing out. You flip it over, you're going to want a couple linebackers, you're going to want probably a member or two of the secondary just for depth, same along the defensive line, stuff like that. As you look at this whole landscape, though, if you're Jim Nagy and you say, I've got my pick of the litter, there's a guy I love at every position, what's like the number 1, number 2, number 3 things you're trying to add to this roster?
Yeah, I think linebackers got to be a big one with McKenzie on his way out, Kip Lewis undecided, Owen Heineke not hearing back yet from the NCAA. I mean, Omasigo definitely showed flashes of being great this year. I felt like he really improved from the year prior and really became a disruptor on that defense. So he's going to be good again next year. But getting 1 or 2 guys with experience, I know that he played more of the cheater role this year, but Kendall Daniels, you saw the production he instantly made for this team. Just hearing from how Oklahoma State people talked about him, wasn't this great worker, had all these concerns, really didn't show any of those this year with the Sooners and was a really good defender. So just getting a bigger body with maybe some experience like Daniels had at the Power 4 level, getting at least one of those guys I think is massive. I think getting another receiver to complement Isaiah Satania likely coming back. He's still undeclared. Giovanni Gibson, Jermichael Carter, I think will be bigger impact players next year. Definitely showed some good things toward the end of the year. But getting one more speedster, I think, to complement Satania with what they're losing in a guy like Deion Burks, I think that's a recipe for them to be as good as they were in the playoff game against Bama. I thought the receiver room was one of the most impressive parts of that game. How they were able to find guys like Jacob Jordan while also feeding Deion Burks 7 times for 107 yards and a touchdown. So getting one more of those guys to make this unit as versatile as it can be, I think that's the biggest offensive need right now.
Yeah, it's tough for me, Hoove, to like separate. You need a starter for me along the offensive line to replace eventually. You also need a couple of tight ends. I think it all goes hand in hand. Like, what do you need? A healthy John Mateer. If you can get Isaiah Satania to come back, which we'll see. We can get to Kip and Satania's decisions here in a little bit. But it feels like everything that could help Mateer in this passing game surrounds so much of, can you get this running game online, which if you have a safety blanket tight end, great. But more than anything, I even think if you can just get a good blocker, finally, for once, at tight end, they haven't had one of those really since Braden Willis, probably, which Shout out Shane Beamer, not Joe John Finley, even though there was overlap. It's a spot where it's hard to almost for me to separate all that stuff with everything that goes on up front, because it felt like it was really Oklahoma with 5 offensive linemen and 3 of those being freshmen or true freshmen against the world when they were trying to run the football in the SEC this year.
Yeah, I'd say you probably got to start. Listen, this offense has been so bad for the last couple of years. They got so many needs and so many holes, so many roster areas that are just a black hole when it comes to bringing guys in bringing guys in the portal, and they just disappear and you never hear from them again. They need an impact tight end. They need a tight end who looks like a starting tight end and plays like a starting tight end in the Southeastern Conference. They have not had that since Braden Willis. You're right. So that would be one. Maybe something happens. Maybe Cade McIntyre gets lucky and doesn't get injured. Maybe Trinae Washington comes up and kind of fulfills that, but he's still going to have to gain physicality and strength and power, speed. The wide receiver is interesting because if Satania comes back, you've got your playmaker, you've got your alpha. Now you need to find your co-alpha, or you don't want to call him a beta. Nobody wants to be called a beta, but you need the rest of your alphas to come up and support that guy. And I don't know. I mean, I compared it in my Santa's, wish list, Dear Santa letter. It's like shopping on Temu, right? You can get a bunch of stuff that looks really good, but in the end, when you've brought a bunch of wide receivers in from, group of fives or Division twos or NAIAs or whatever, they're going to break early. They're not going to work like they said on the internet. You look at the little user reviews and they sound great. You get them home and it doesn't work. It's not what you thought you were buying. So that's just what they've gotten in the transfer portal from the wide receiver position and the tight end position. Go out and get some playmakers. Go out and get some studs. Go out and get a Cam Coleman. Maybe not for $3 million, but go out and get a Cam Coleman. Go find somebody who has proven he can make those big plays in the SEC. That's what this offense needs.
And Aber, I do wonder. Cam Coleman probably not, because I think that everyone's gonna throw a bag. And Cam Coleman, you are a fighting Texas Aggie. But when you look at last year, it was this. Whether it be the old front office plus Emmett Jones, whoever was making those decisions, they clearly did the Moneyball thing at receiver. Hey, we got to bring in 7,000 bodies and all that. And while I think Giovanni Gibson, you'd give him a healthy offseason, I'm interested to see what that looks like. Jermichael Carter, like you guys mentioned, very interested to see big catches against Alabama and Tuscaloosa that kind of fly under the radar, stuff like that. I do wonder if you look around and go, hey, Jim Nagy took the swing at Jaden Ott in the post-spring portal, because that was what made sense as far as adding a big playmaker. But a guy with NFL background, a guy that's run the Senior Bowl, look at the NFL draft. If you get a Saquon Barkley, if you get a big time, going back to Josh Jacobs, Ashton Genty, a couple of these guys, late first round guys coming out, Michigan, things like that. Sure, some people are taking swings at running backs, but in the NFL, the 10 through 20 is, can I find my Jamar Chase? Can you find your Jamar Chase? I'm just going to draft wide receiver draft. I do wonder if Nagy comes in and is like, hey, boys, I appreciate that you guys did that work before I got here last year, but we're taking our big swings there, and we're going to try and moneyball another position, like maybe running back. I wonder if it's flipped or maybe not. I don't know. It's stuff that we're going to find out here over the next 3 weeks, basically.
Yeah, I think that'll certainly be fascinating to watch there. And it wouldn't surprise me if they did make that shift, because, yes, they did hit on, obviously Isaiah Satania there. None of those other guys really emerged in a big way, although, like you mentioned, a couple of them were banged up. And, I think there's still certainly some hope for Jermichael Carter and Giovanni Gibson that they become productive players. And they don't need, who said Derrick Henry, which would be fantastic if you find a guy like that. They don't need a guy like that. They just need a guy who can be, fairly consistently productive at running back and stay healthy, which are, not the lowest bar in the world. But I think if you can find a game-changing receiver, not that Isaiah Satania wasn't fantastic, he was. But if you can find a guy to match with him, I mean, we look at, when OU had, CeeDee Lamb and D.D. Westbrook, how just deadly they were with, a couple of big-time receivers. Now, what goes into that is you've also got to have a quarterback that can get it to him consistently and get it to him in different spots. which John McTeer struggled with at times last year. But if I think there is going to be some kind of philosophical change this year. We'll see if that's the way that they go. But it's not going to surprise me at all if they really prioritize getting a big time wide receiver there. I don't think it's going to be Coleman because he's going to cost too much. But you've also got to be willing to pay for big time guys if you're going to get them that are proven playmakers, like Hoover said.
One thing Oklahoma has been really good at, and that spans any front office setup or whatever you want to look at, is you talk about paying guys, Ryan. They have done a really good job of saying, hey, we value retention, teaching, having things come back year over year. And you look at these last couple of years, guys that fall into that category. Danny Stutzman, who got a higher grade than I would expect Kip Lewis is probably going to get initially from the NFL. He decides to come back, has a super productive year. You look at different position, but R. Mason Thomas a year ago. Hey, Target, can you bring that guy back? Boom, awesome, 2 thumbs up. You look at Deion Burks a year ago, which I know this was not the year that OU thought Deion Burks was going to have, or that Deion Burks thought Deion Burks was going to have, but I think part of that is young offensive coordinator. Why are you having Deion Burks block instead of catch? I think part of that is that your quarterback has a hand injury, and there was only one guy that seemed to be able to persist through that. That was Satania. You look at Canick's dip in production, everybody's dip in production over that middle course of the season. It's going to be really, really interesting because the two guys that kind of fall into that boat, you've got some underclassmen like Taylor Wine who could technically declare, but I think it'll be an Oklahoma takes care of him. I think he's a guy that sees obviously the value of, look at the guys in front of me that stayed the extra year and look at that, especially off of just one big. But you know that Jaden Jackson, David Stone can't go to the draft yet, going to invest to keep those guys locked down. But what for Oklahoma, maybe the two biggest things they could get would, first off, if you can win the conversation with Kip Lewis and you can go, hey man, look, I know that you're probably going to be 20 pounds too light for some defenses, and the other defenses that are not as concerned about that, you're probably 0.2 of a second too slow in some of the testing stuff for the coaching staffs that care more about that. Well, guess what? We can try to put a little bit more weight on you. We'll always be able to work on your metrics and stuff like that. But you know the thing that you could really do? NIL money, you cannot condition it on incentives, things like that, which to me means that's basically guaranteed for a Kip Lewis. Can you come back, have guaranteed money, put out another year of great tape in the SEC, and next year, maybe you're a 3rd round pick, maybe you're a 4th round pick, maybe you're a 5th round pick, you're still battling for a roster spot, you have that other year of guaranteed money, all that stuff. Or do you want to go fight that battle right now? I think that's a really, really intriguing actual conversation. It's kind of the inverse to me of what the Satania conversation is, which is, hey, we showed you last year, we will invest in a Deion Burks to keep him in. For Satania, you're not going to get taller. I don't think you need to get any faster. I wonder if what the different weighing of options is for a Satania of like, are you going to be more productive next year? Maybe, but maybe not. Do you strike while the iron's hot right now? Or do you come back, get paid for another year knowing that there's a ton of wide receivers always in the draft as opposed, I don't know. It's very, very interesting because I think the conversation is almost flipped with Kip Lewis and Isaiah Satania, but I think OU's got good pitches on both fronts, Carson, to try and at least make an earnest effort to keep those two guys from testing the NFL waters.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially with Lewis, there's a lot of opportunity to bolster that stock. The linebacker room, as we mentioned, is going to look different whether he stays or leaves next year, just simply because McKenzie's not going to be there. So, I mean, having one more year in a leadership role, we saw what Stutzman did in his final year at OU. Even though the team was bad, he was still a difference maker on that defense. So I think there's a lot to gain for him. Satania is... maybe it is a little bit of a different situation as far as he's not going to get any faster, but he's not going to get any slower, most likely. Height staying the same, but I think he can be a difference maker, similar, maybe better to what he was this year, obviously with Mateer being injury riddled for the back half of the season. Maybe he looks like he did in the first 4 games of the year this year, and he's a better quarterback, finds more Satania in different situations, maybe more deep balls. So I think maybe getting a little bit more tape of truly deep balls that are fairly covered. I think that's something that could improve his stock. But I also get if he sees, oh, look at what Khalil Shakir is doing for the Buffalo Bills, kind of being that twitchier, undersized guy for them. Players like that, maybe he fits into the mold, sees production. Maybe he does opt to leave. But I think there definitely is some value in him getting another year with the system in Norman.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think on the surface, I think it makes sense for him to come back. Not going to surprise me if he doesn't there because of everything that Carson and Ryan both mentioned there. But I think there's some room for growth, like Carson said. The deep balls, if John Mateer progresses, if he's able to be more effective there getting the ball to Isaiah Satania down the field, and also if they're able to add a quality receiver in the portal, if they're able to spread it out and maybe take some of the heat off of Isaiah Satania, because for so much of the year, all of the coverage attention was going to Satania because there's really no one else that could step up and consistently make plays among the receivers. Deion Burks had a great Michigan game, had a great game to end the season against Alabama. Not a ton in the middle there. For me, it really makes sense for Kip Lewis to come back. I think there's a lot of growth potential there for him in the next year. And if you're able to bring back Kip Lewis, if you're able to bring back Owen Heineke, if the NCAA grants that, or if OU just whispers the word lawsuit, and the NCAA wakes up and grants him another year of eligibility, you feel pretty good about that linebacker group at the top at that point. And those guys. I know obviously Kobe McKenzie a big loss, but Owen Heineke took over for Kobe McKenzie, and there's a reason for it. Owen Heineke was fantastic, one of the best stories of the year. I think him and Sandell had to be the two top stories of the year for the Sooners player wise. But it really is going to be interesting to see what those two guys do, because that changes the dynamic of what this 2026 team looks like in a major way if those guys come back versus if they decide to enter the draft.
Guys, I'll ask this question, continue this discussion in a slightly different direction. Who is next year's Taylor Wine? Who is next year's Owen Heineke? Who are the guys that are on the roster right now? If we look back last year's podcast, did any of us say, watch out for Taylor Wine next year, man? I think he's going to have a big year. Coach has been talking about his winter workouts, or how he did in Monday Night Football, freshman football, or Heineke. There's a couple of guys on the roster who you look at and look ahead and try to project. It's impossible to project what those guys have done, what those two guys in particular have done, and a couple of others to a lesser degree. But that's always the fun part, though.
Sorry, Ryan. I didn't.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is someone that no one's really I really like. We got super limited. I thought Nigel Smith rocked the handful of times that a guy that cruised the defensive end, slid over to the interior. I really wonder, and I'm fascinated when we look at defensive line next year. I think that just to be comfortable, part of the strength of, we talked about R. Mason Thomas going down. Well, guess what? Taylor Wine, PJ Okoye able to step up, and you didn't really notice it. Same thing with Jaden Jackson being hobbled back into the year. Grayson Halton, Don Williams, David Stone, so good. I wonder if OU says we need to add some veteran guys just to double check that we've got that. But I think that Nigel Smith, a guy that looks like he has made that adjustment, carrying stuff well, and I wonder if he's maybe not a Taylor Wine level of breakout star, but we look back 8 games in next year and just did they need to add a defensive tackle if you had Marcus Strong and Trent Wilson and then a Nigel, something like that? I don't know. We'll see. Sorry.
Yeah, I think to me that defensive line is going to be really interesting with, like you mentioned, Nigel Smith. Okoye are two guys that played fairly significant roles at times this year, especially when R. Mason Thomas was out there late. But those are guys who can make a significant leap forward. I mean, obviously PJ, a former 5-star guy, still I think a lot of meat on that bone for improvement. Even though I think he got significantly better this year, I think Okoye is going to be a guy who's going to grow. I think it's not going to surprise me if they do add some guys on that defensive line, or a guy at least to sort of fill in there. But I think one of the biggest things this year was just developing that depth to sort of have that next guy up ready to go. And I think that there are some guys that can be maybe not make as significant a jump as Taylor Wine, just because there was such a big jump to be made for him. But guys who are going to go from fringe contributors to right in the thick of things. And I think there's a lot of guys on that defensive line that have a chance to do that next year.
It's also like a similar conversation going the other way. It's also why I continue to be a little concerned about Oklahoma's offensive line, because when you look at the frontline guys, two thumbs up, good, keep all those guys in, and that's why keeping an Ozida or keeping a Logan Howland so important. But as we saw the last 2 or 3 years, OU got into trouble when they only signed 2 or 3 guys. Lincoln Riley very famously made the big shift once the portal started coming in full swing of, we want to go quality over quantity. We're not going to take 4 guys just to take 4 guys. And what happened is, if you don't hit on every single one of those guys you take, then you end up with a year where you have to get like 4 guys in the portal, not just to be depth pieces or to be, hey, if we could add a swing tackle, that's great. But like 4 or 5 guys that have to come in and be part of your top 8 guys on the offensive line. And well, OU, again, if you're able to retain Howland, able to retain Ozida, you got 6 returning. You got with experience, you can add 1 or 2. Like, I think that's okay. But this is where OU has to be a little bit careful, because you have 4 going out the door, only able to sign 2. And I think we all can agree the 2026 class, recruiting on the hot seat, all that stuff is the exception, not the rule for Brent Venables. They've always signed big offensive line classes since they've been there. But this is a very delicate, like, you need to hit, and they certainly look like they're hitting already in 2027 with everything, already lined up with Hackett and Caden Pitty and all that. But that's one of those spots where you need to continue that development path, because as we've seen, whether it be Alabama dealing with guys in the CFP, Oklahoma these last 2 years, you're now into one of those leagues where it's like offensive linemen are going to get banged up, and you need to have that factory, that pipeline moving. And I think that it's been unfortunate because it's mainly due to injury, Carson, but that's something that has, like, you ask how is Oklahoma in this spot on the offensive line? I think it's misses, injuries, in a spot like that where they've had to rely on 3 freshmen this past year to try and get it done.
Yeah, I think following the mold of what they did with Jake Michael, as somebody that wasn't just this huge, like, oh, he's one of the top ranked O linemen in the portal. I think getting guys like him that maybe didn't have the flashiest numbers, didn't play the most snaps at his previous school, but came from another power program, got some experience there. I think that's kind of what they should go after. Don't obviously have to spend a huge amount of money on players like that, but getting players that have that experience playing against quality opponents, quality defensive linemen, I think that would be big. Whether that's pursuing Big 12 talent, ACC talent, there are a lot of offensive linemen currently who have announced that they're going portal. So just getting some depth pieces, as you mentioned, I think the consensus is that there's a good foundation built with those frontline guys. Just getting some players to back them up, because the injuries have been an issue the last few years. I think just getting some safety nets would be huge for some of these younger guys like Foj, Fasusi, Pierre-Louis. I think that's a big priority.
Ryan, you nailed it on the 27 class. Looks like a bunch of superstars coming in, but 26 only has 2 guys, only brought in 2 guys, Deacon Schmidt and Noah Best. Supposed to be pretty good players, but that's, like you said, they better be pretty good players because there's nobody else. It's just those 2 guys.
Like, they got to be really good and healthy is the other thing, which is often not, anyone's fault.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think I go back to signing day when they were talking about those 2 lineman signees, and I think Brent Venables talked and Jim Nagy talked pretty significantly about versatility and needing guys who can play, maybe a center and guard and guard and tackle. I mean, just think where they would be this year if they didn't have a guy like Foj who could go inside and outside. If they didn't have a guy like Fabechi Wiwu who could go from guard to playing a serviceable job at center those last couple games. And you've got to get guys like that, especially in this era, the portal era, NIL, pay for play thing. And with the roster, changes coming, that alters that dynamic a little bit. But you've got to get guys who can do a little bit of everything and be ready to step in, because like we've all said, offensive line is a spot where you're going to lose guys. I mean, you just look over the last couple seasons and how devastating some of those injuries have been. Jacob Sexton repeatedly. We talked about Jake Taylor and obviously Troy Everett and Jake Michaela this year. They've got to get guys who can get one or two frontline guys who can slide in there and be ready to go immediately, but also a couple of guys who can fill in a couple of different spots and be at least at replacement level, we'll say, or slightly above, in order for them to be successful with sort of the grind that is the SEC schedule.
And the great news on that too is you look at, since the portal's become like super prevalent, Tyler Guyton, great ad through the portal, if we're just gonna term it as a high war offensive tackle addition. You look at even like McCade Mathier, Walter Rouse, Troy Everett, Favechi Wiwu, Jake Michael. You can find really quality guys in the transfer portal. Where you get into troubles when you have to add when you have to have Spencer Brown and Favechi and all this on top of each other. And you go, okay, well, you'd like to be able to say, I know every offensive line's chemistry is different, even changed in one guy, but if you can have 4 to 6 guys that have already been there, can help those guys along, smooth it all over. Bill Beanbo can make that happen. He's just no one's a miracle worker. It's really, really hard to have 5 new offensive linemen every single year. And I just bring that up to say it's a really, really key, I think, like 2-year stretch to bridge this gap between having enough time for some of these guys that they've brought in these larger classes previously to develop, and waiting on like those 2027 superstars to kind of hit, and only having 2 guys in the 2026 class that signed up. That's one of those things that you just got to smooth it over. Just be careful, because I think that it's very easy to go, and I think many people were doing it last year. Like, how do you go from the 2017, 2018, 2019 units to this? So it's like, well, it all goes back to recruiting and things like that. And you saw that you could paper it over for a while, but to get back to where they want to be, you need to start getting back to that year-over-year development, which Bill Beanbo has showed he's pretty darn good at there. Otherwise, it's going to be easiest thing I can tell you guys to do. We've got our transfer portal tracker up. I'm going to repost it to the top of the page, especially on Friday once that thing gets going. The easiest place to find it, though, if you don't already have it and you want to bookmark it, just go to our Twitter feed at Sooners on SI. It's the pinned tweet right to the top. It's going to stay as the pinned tweet throughout portal season. Easy tables of every single player on the way out. Got it in there with a little analysis block. Big loss, yes, no. When they start adding guys, every single player, how are they going to fit? We'll have stories, obviously, but if you want it all in one spot, it'll all be there in our transfer portal tracker, which people seem to like that. So hopefully the format's readable. If not, like, hit me up and we can move some stuff around. We're just trying to make it as streamlined and as easy for everyone to track, because I know, especially once Friday hits, you've got the possibility of guys going out, guys coming on visits, all this. It becomes like, oh my gosh, just tell me who's on the football team, and we will certainly be able to do that there for you guys. Before we move into the world of elsewhere, which is getting ready for SEC play on the hoops front, outside of just waiting for the portal to get underway, anything else football? I know it's been a hot minute since we were all together discussing this, but I think we've just about covered it as the college football world dives back into CFP action tonight.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just real quick. Who does what is the game here in this round that most excites you?
I've got my full power rate. I'll cheat because I did 1 through 4 because we have to do radio stuff. But Carson, if you could only watch one game, first off, please quit. If we are ever like working in a situation where I'm only making you watch one game, quit, leave, do it. That's what you should do. But if you could only take one, what do you got?
Yeah, I think all 4 are really good games. I'm going Oregon, Texas Tech, though. I think that's a phenomenal game. I think Texas Tech is legit, but you look at all the talent Oregon has. That's the best team that they've played so far. So I'm excited for that one. Think it's going to be a lot of points, but some big defensive plays down the final stretches of that game. Think it's going to be awesome.
I'm with Carson. Oregon versus Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. Was that tomorrow, I guess? That's going to be a blast because Texas Tech's been talking. loudly all year about how good they are, how great their defense is, and it is. They've got a fantastic defense. They've got 2 first-team All-Americans on the defensive front 7. It's time to put up or shut up. You've got the Oregon Ducks in Miami in a semifinal playoff spot. If it doesn't go well for Texas Tech, that's going to be a hard pill to swallow. I like Alabama and Indiana out in the Rose Bowl just because that's where I'd prefer to be this week. That would be fun to cover that game, cover the Hoosiers and the Sooners.
Supposed to rain. Gonna be warmer here than it was out there. The Rose Bowl's actually not all. We didn't actually want to be in LA, John. It's
okay. So much smog and so much politics pass on all that. High prices for everything. No, I'd much rather be in LA. And then Ohio State, Miami doesn't really do anything for me. I get the feeling that's kind of going to be a blowout. The same with Georgia and Ole Miss, although I'd like to see Lane Kiffin coaching in the playoff, but I guess that's not going to happen. We're going to see all his current LSU coaches coaching in the playoff for the Rebels. This is just going to be weird. It's just going to be weird. So give me Tech Oregon.
Yeah, I would lean that way initially, but I love the Indiana-Alabama matchup. I think it's going to be fascinating. Indiana's defense is phenomenal. They've also obviously got the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback who's going to have his number one weapon back in the lineup after he got hurt in the Big Ten title game. Indiana's got just what a story. They've been, one of the best team clearly in the regular season and in the conference title game. Indiana facing the bluest of the blue bloods in college football and a team that has looked like the best team at times, but then in November did not look like the best team in Alabama. But I think it's just going to be fascinating to see how that game plays out in, even if it's rainy, the best setting in college football.
Chapman's defended power rankings at number 4. The Sugar Bowl, it's not their fault. It's a rematch. We've already seen this game once, so it gets a little bit knocked down in the excitement rating, even though I still think it's going to be fun. Also, I'll be double screening that and Oklahoma women's basketball, their SEC opener in College Station, so I'll be like split screen, split all that. Number 3 for me is Miami and Ohio State. Sorry to them, it's nothing against. I just think that one might be lower scoring, and I've got some questions. If Carson Beck can hold onto the football, is Tony going to be able to out-duel the skill positions of Ohio State? Ohio State is the best defense they've actually scored on Michigan, but Michigan's offense was kind of dead in the water. What does that look like? Number 2, give me Oregon and Texas Tech. I'm very juiced for this game. The opportunity for Indiana to knock out Ohio State and Alabama in back-to-back games. Can Indiana keep this plucky underdog as the number 1 overall seed after you just beat Ohio State to win the Big Ten and your quarterback won the Heisman and Sig is the talk of college football? I just think it's awesome. And either way, I'm going to be over the moon with all these. And we got bowl season back a little bit. I've not disliked bowl season as much as the hand-wringing about opt-outs, all that stuff. I watch all the games. I never really care who's playing and who's not playing. And last night, between the Tennessee, Illinois, we get special teams, we get all of this stuff, and Illinois comes down and kicks the field goal. And then our pal, our good friend, Lincoln Riley, blowing another 10-point lead with 4 minutes left in a bowl game. The Mecca, the window is open, boys. It took them 4 years, challenging and fun years, but the Mecca is open for business. All aboard USC 2027 national champion. Who says no?
How about Michigan and Texas going at it today? That would be fun.
Yeah, we got that game going here in a little bit.
Yeah, in a couple hours. The team that everybody around here in this state hates more than any other versus the team that everybody else in the country hates more than any other, except for maybe Notre Dame. The Michigan Wolverines, the most amoral college football program apparently that has ever existed. They've had to fire their coach. There's 13 guys leaving the roster so far. The portal hasn't even opened yet.
Which, that's a high bar. When you're talking about college football, talking about the most amoral college football team. I mean, to be fair, Penn State in the Joe Paterno era.
That's true. Baylor.
Baylor. but off the rails there at Michigan, and it's just stunning to see that. I think they did the best that they could to get Kyle Whittingham. I love that hire.
Yep.
I think if anybody can get it back on track, it is him. But he's got a lot of work cut out for him. Based on not only the Sharon Moore situation, but everything else that's gone on in Ann Arbor.
This Sharon Moore situation is fairly unprecedented, isn't it? I mean, have you guys ever seen a head football coach at a place like Michigan just set himself on fire like that?
Well, I mean, the
it's different than what Bryles did. It's different than how Paterno went down. It's different than anybody.
Well,
his circumstances are just unprecedented. Like, what are you even thinking?
Yeah, I mean, the closest is Bobby Petrino, but he took it up a notch even from that. And he did it at a program that's on a different level than what Arkansas is and was. But
he didn't have a blonde on the back of his Harley. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, well, allegedly a motorcycle. But the thing is, if Sharon Moore wouldn't have gone to her house and did all that, he would have been back coaching fairly quickly. I mean, Bobby Petrino was rehired at Arkansas not that long before after it happened. I mean, years, but like Sharon Moore still had a future even after all that. And then he just let it go away.
It's insane, and it's also the Whittingham hire is the closest thing I can remember in maybe almost close to like a decade, maybe a little less than a decade of can you go out and for Michigan the timing's awful obviously, and he's a coach with great pedigree, but it's simply like this is reminiscent of program just got hammered with NCAA stuff, so we kind of have to go out and get an old head or an old timer that's just going to lay the foundation and like reset the culture almost for 2 or 3 years, then they'll retire, and then whoever the new guy is 3 or 4 years from now can come in and try to build up from there. He's like an absolutely mega steroids Jim Grobe, and I think that's the last time we saw like that kind of hire, and obviously there are different circumstances where it's like, hey, let's just go get the old head that we know. If nothing else, we're not going to be like embarrassing awful, we might not be good or anything like that, and oh by the way, like Whittingham's not gonna let any of the crap fly that's gonna like make us be like, how just add it to the list of things that have it's the most arrested coaching staff I think when you go back to even the Harbaugh. I'm just like, how does this happen? It's kind of unbelievable, kind of incredible. So good luck to everyone there, and thank you. Now for those that don't know, I did text Aber before the podcast and I was like, hey dog, we'd love to have you on the pod, but we can only do it in week 0. And at least Aber was like, whatever, you just anytime, anywhere. He did it and didn't try to like weasel out of it. What a move by USC to go out there and say, we're gonna, by your words, technically offer you a slot, knowing that there are 0 college football programs in the country that want to play a big time rivalry game in week 0, and then somehow pound our chest about like, see, look at these Notre Dame people. It's like, no, you gave them an offer that you knew they were not going to take, just so you could be like, we look at us, we don't run from a fight only in week 0 in like Australia or something. What a bonkers situation.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me a little bit of the back and forth with Bedlam and talking about continuing that series where each side finds their way to say, oh, we'd play it, but ... That's sort of where USC is on this whole thing, and I grew up a Notre Dame fan. I'll just be blunt about that. The Rocket Ishmael, Tim Brown, Lou Holtz era. So I have zero love for USC for a lot of reasons, but it just is sort of laughable. But it's also sad to see a lot of these rivalries, and we've seen them with conferences. OU Nebraska being the biggest one certainly around here, shift. But that's just sort of the way of the world, and things change. It's going to be really weird not to have USC Notre Dame on the schedule, but not entirely surprising, unfortunately. I thought it was really interesting, though, to hear Lincoln Riley's answer, talking about it, like you said, beating their chest and saying, "Oh, we'll play him," but not really leaving Notre Dame a real option there.
Feels like this is a bad whose line is it anyway gag where do you guys remember there's always like someone has to stand, someone has to sit, someone has to like be sitting on a stool, and it's like, okay, we can get Texas and Texas A&M back, but now we have to send Notre Dame and USC to the moon, and we're going to spin it around in some other regional rival. We'll get 2 years of the backyard brawl, but no OU Nebraska until 2027 or whatever it is.
The question is, who is Wayne Brady?
Wayne Brady is like, you know what, NCAA, this is stupid. I'm just gonna go host Let's Make a Deal and call it a day, and that's what he's done. As we say, again, I know this is podcast form, outdated, yada yada yada. 1:20 right now. Pete Nakos reporting that OU corner Gentry Williams is headed to the portal. That is something that I wondered what that would look like, just as far as when the front office staff comes in. Do they want, again, a guy where if Gentry's holding a roster spot, you're hoping he's healthy? And also the flip side of that is, even if Oklahoma wants him, we saw this when Trace Ford transferred to OU. He just basically talked about, hey, at some point, when I go out to the practice field, when I'm at the training facilities in Stillwater, I just remember all the times I got hurt and all the places I got hurt and having to do all this injury rehab. Sometimes that just means that guys need a fresh start. And for a guy like Gentry, he's one of those guys that you love him if he can be in your rotation. But I think with Eli Bowen and Cortland Guillory, it's one of those spots where everyone knew those guys are your starters. They're your starters going forward, whether they came back or not. So I think that all that would do is you see Devon Jordan and Gentry go. I think it would just confirm guys that need another number or two. It doesn't necessarily have to be like top number one overall cornerback in the transfer portal, just guys that Jay Valai can come in and rotate in, especially if Jacoby Johnson stays. You need someone to rotate with Jacoby Johnson and anybody else over there.
Ryan, I got to ask, without getting too personal here, did you take a shower this morning or something, man? I mean...
Yeah, I know. This is... I don't know if we've ever talked about this on the podcast. But
well, I don't think we have.
Back when we were a two-man shop, it was like clockwork. If Hoover or I went to take a shower, we'd have to, like, TMI, text the other person, be like, hey, I'm going to take a shower. If any breaking news happens, it's all you. Like, just pick it up, get it, and go. And there was a year that, like clockwork, the second that happened, the other one of us was at our desk for like 2 straight hours. Like, this is a breaking news story. This is a breaking news story. So I sometimes will text Tube and be like, hey, I'm going to go summon some news, stuff like that for us if it's a slow day. I did shower today, and like 7,000 people headed to the portal. I think this is kind of like everyone's back from Christmas break. We all talked about it. You deliberated. Now everybody come back in, and over these last couple days, I imagine there's been a lot of meetings at the Switzer Center of like, you guys thought it over, talked with your family, let's make these calls and let's announce it and get around.
I think what's going on is somebody up the Switzer Center got a hold of our podcast text string somehow, and they realized, okay, those 4 dudes are going to be doing a podcast from starting at noon. So what we need to do is have all of our breaking news portal entries go out while they're podcasting. Guys, it's unbelievable. This is what, 4 guys while we've been sitting here talking about it. So and poor Brady is just getting slammed right now. Brady is always welcome on the podcast, but he does have his own podcast.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why we don't pull all 5 people all together. It's for this. The MVPs of today: Carson Field, who took it all on the chin right before the podcast, and Brady. Since then, it'd be awesome if
Brady. Chapman.
Oh yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Brady is like the congressman who you keep in the bunker during emergency times, just so you have somebody in the line of succession that you know is going to be alive. That's Brady Trantham today.
Yeah, he's our designated survivor right now, basically. So good luck to Brady. Yeah, times like this, guys, I wish that I could just go, you know what? The Sooners on SI crew, we need someone who can come in mid-podcast, even though we've already been going. We need someone who can give us probably 5 minutes off the bench, who's probably 6'11", and preferably Russian, to come in and help us out because there's so much news happening all over the place. And that's exactly what Oklahoma basketball did. Life imitates art. Porter Moser and crew added Big Kirill. That's what he is. Sorry, he's Big Kirill. I'm not even going to attempt the last name. Sorry to everyone. On the verge of SEC play. What a weird situation, Carson. A guy that, because of Kai Rogers' injury against Stetson, because of Mo Agee getting 4 fouls in 14 minutes against a terrible basketball team, which is another thing. Shout out Mo. Always be you, Mo. We got an actual glimpse. It wasn't just a hypothetical, like, hey, there's this big Russian guy on the bench. We got to see him play, Carson.
Yes, we did. And it was interesting. I think that Coach Moser said he got 2 practices in before appearing in a game, albeit against a really bad basketball team, a basketball team that is ranked last in the net, and their only win came against Mississippi University for women. So, not the best competition for him to start his college career with. But I thought he looked like he could be someone that adds depth to this front court. Looked a little rusty just from the sense that he hasn't played with this team ever before. But the size, 6'11", that's huge for this team. Someone that can grab rebounds just purely based on length. Had some good moves down low, got a couple of baskets before the night ended. So, I mean, all things considered, I feel like that's got to be a pretty promising start for the big guy from Russia.
Bro, you made that up. Mississippi University for women. You made that up. Come on now.
Google it. Google it.
Google it.
Kurt Signetti would say, Google it.
Even though it's a men's team at a college named Mississippi University for women, at least it's women, multiple, and not the weirdest named program in all of college existence, Texas Women's University. Just one.
Careful, careful. My sister's got 2 degrees from there, and they keep her well employed. So shout out.
Well, hey, good for your sister, but learn some grammar at the same time.
They're just honoring one woman many times over.
The number of times wearing a TWU soccer hoodie and people being like, "There's a typo on your hoodie, bro," and I'm like, "No, there's a typo in the name of the school. It's not my fault. It's not the hoodie's fault." They got that going. No, I'm really fascinated, Carson, because this is an SEC conference. It looks like it's taking a large step back from what it was a year ago. Still some good teams at the top, but this shouldn't be like oh my gosh, of the 16 teams playing, they're going to get 14 into the NCAA tournament. It's a conference that OU needs to go above 500 in conference play. I don't think that's an impossible thing, especially as Xavier Brown looks like he's been a lot better, but it was still just crazy to be like, hey, they got Ole Miss here, and every time they'd cut over to him, someone on the bench is like explaining to Kirill, like, okay, this is where we need you to be here. This is this set here. It's fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see how the front court develops, because you see guys like Kai Rogers. He's currently battling an injury, but he's shown some promise lately, getting more minutes, including against Arizona State and Oklahoma State. So he's finally ramping up. Koala Talk in phases has looked really good so far this season. So I think that does bode well, because the front court's something that struggled very mightily early on in this season. It looks a lot better now going into SEC play. That's huge. As you mentioned, the conference isn't what it was last year. Vanderbilt's actually the top team. Duke Miles leading that squad right now. He's been fantastic, and so have the Commodores. But it's still a competitive league. I feel like there's a lot more parity this year. There isn't a true South Carolina from last year that essentially is a free win for everyone in the league. Everybody's at least decent, even if that means there aren't as many teams in the top 4 seed line. I think it's still a good conference, but near or above 500's got to be the goal for Porter Moser's squad.
Guys, I got a quick question, if you can answer it for me, please. On behalf of our casual viewers, I'm a college basketball casual. How does this happen? How do you get to sign a Russian guy midway through a college basketball season, playing in a professional league? They signed somebody signed a G League guy. Somebody signed a former bowl second round pick or something like that. I mean, how is this? What are the recent rule changes? How have they come together to allow coaches to reshape their roster at mid-season?
Well, to be fair, it's not only casuals who are asking that question, because I heard Tom Izzo ask the question when talking about Baylor's addition that you referenced there the other day. So it's a sea change in the way that college basketball works. The NCAA, I think it's just the latest sign that the NCAA has changed significantly in their eligibility, things like that. We saw them say that they wouldn't allow a guy who had signed any kind of an NBA contract to play. But you've got to imagine that at some point, somebody who has signed an NBA contract is going to challenge that. And, it's not going to surprise me if they're successful based on, some of the things that we've seen around college athletics the last couple of years.
All of it leads me to say, sue on Owen Heineke's behalf. Who's the last?
You don't even
What's
have to sue. Just like I said earlier, just whisper into their ear, lawsuit. And they're probably going to fold.
Yeah, it's been bizarre. And Carson, I know that you wrote the story about it. If you want to read all about Porter talking about how this went down on the OU end, basically, and correct me if I get it wrong, he basically said that Porter, he's a purist at heart, but I think he also saw that the early adopters of the portal won, and he kind of was slow to adopt that. And so he basically was like, what? He saw a Goodman tweet that said, like a couple months ago, hey, this guy's been cleared by the NCAA if anyone wants him. And so OU just started doing some due diligence, and he was like, I don't like it, but if no one's going to tell me no and we need another body, then let's go.
Yeah, that is more or less what happened, according to Coach Moser. Just scrolling Twitter one night, X, excuse me, and saw that tweet from Jeff Goodman, and I think his eyes widened when he saw 6'11". Huh, our team could use another 6'11" guy. So just doing the due diligence after that, as you mentioned, not necessarily having to be a fan of the precedent of getting someone that has played professionally in Russia. I do think the situation is different from the James Najee situation at Baylor. I know that Trenton Flowers, who was actually played for the Chicago Bulls, is getting interest from NCAA teams. That's a whole nother issue. But doing the work when you found out, okay, this guy is eligible, we are doing nothing unethical if we get Kirill to this program. And 2 months later, he's suiting up for the Sooners and can be a huge impact piece for this team.
One of the crazier stories, as far as I don't know if it has the same impact as some of like the football crazy stories, but one of the crazier stories I can remember in Oklahoma, just like, hey, by the way, the Russian guy's here and he's 2 practices in playing in a basketball game. Oh, he's got Ole Miss on the men's side to open. They've actually got a nice little ramp in here before they've got to play. What is it Alabama that's the first ranked team that they play in SEC play like 3 games in, basically. So they'll have that. The Sooner women, they're going to get going. They got a couple.
Ryan, real quick, the Sooner women, I mean, they've got an Irish young lady and a French young lady. If they're not bringing in somebody from Ukraine by the end of the week, I'm going to be super disappointed.
Well, you say this. Last year, Auburn did exactly this. They did it with a player from the Chinese youth leagues, where I can just tell you that Oklahoma started scouting Auburn basketball, and halfway through the year, they're like, who is this? It's maybe their best player, and we not on the scouting report. And I can also tell you, talking to some of the people around the sports staff, there was no communication there. That was didn't speak English, didn't speak all that. So good luck there. Auburn got it done last year. Sooner women, they'll open, like we said, Thursday at A&M. Then they'll be coming back to the Lloyd Noble Center to play. Are they also playing Ole Miss at the LNC? Is that the home SEC opener?
Mississippi State first, and then Ole Miss.
Mississippi State, then Ole Miss. Yep, thank you. Sorry. Then they'll build pretty quickly into the stretch for them is at Kentucky, I believe. Then you got LSU and South Carolina in the same week, back-to-back games at the Lloyd Noble Center. Aber and I have kind of talked about this before, and not much has changed since Bedlam because they've only played about 1 game since then. But I think mission accomplished from what they wanted to get from the UCLA game to SEC play, which is build that depth and get Chavez as comfortable as possible. Now I think, Aber, it's about taking another step between now and really certainly that at Kentucky, LSU, South Carolina stretch, because that's going to be kind of it feels like the way it's broken these last 2 years, you get one big stretch of all your ranked games, then that's where you can make your case to the committee, and then the other time it's just don't slip on the banana peel if you're one of the top teams.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's going to be a fascinating SEC schedule with a lot of ranked teams, like you mentioned, in that really, really difficult stretch there. But I think Aaliyah Chavez is certainly playing much more confidently than she was in those first couple games of the season, the UCLA game as you mentioned, and it's not just the shot making, but her ability to spread the ball around. I think that she's gotten much more confident in her passing, which has changed the dynamic for Peyton Verhulst. I think that she doesn't have to be as much of a either facilitator or scorer. I think she's done a lot of facilitating in different ways other than just passing. Jenny Baranczyk talked about that after their last game, just sort of the way that her dynamic has changed there. But the biggest thing for them is just going to be how are they able to hold up with their depth in the SEC when you get those tough stretches, because their starting five is as good as any starting five I think in the country. But beyond that, Keziah Lofton has shown some really good signs lately. Is she able to translate that into the SEC? Kaya Smith has done some good things, especially defensively. You just look at the steal numbers for her, have been fantastic. And then Brooklyn Stewart, how is she able to continue to come along there? I think if they're able to get even just those three and, whatever they get out of Beatrice Culleton off the bench, if they're able to be at least representative in that group, they've got a chance to go a long, long way because, like we said, this top five is as good as any in the country, especially with Zaya Van and the steps that she continues to take on both ends of the floor.
Should be a fun, interesting winter as we turn into spring. We'll have you covered. Obviously, a lot of time spent between Brady, Carson, Aber, and I at Lloyd Noble Center coming up here. And as always, as the portal gets going, as we continue to see entrants and exits and all that, we'll have you covered. Like I said, the easiest thing I could tell you, OklahomaSooners.si.com. We'll have everything always per usual. But if you're just like, man, this portal stuff, it's so hard to keep track, just go to our Twitter page, Sooners on SI, X, whatever, sorry. Go to our pinned tweet. It's right at the top. It's the portal tracker. It's all the incomings, outgoings, all that stuff. It'll be there with all of that. But I think for Brady's sake, because I know he's filling in on radio today, and we have to pull him out of the bunker at some point, we need to scoot. So thank you guys for tuning in. As always, I hope that you enjoyed 2025 as much as we did. And the good news for everyone is the calendar may turn officially tomorrow, but there's certainly no slowing down around here. We are just stretching out and getting back into mid-season form when it comes to all of that fun stuff. Big thank you to Aber for agreeing to meet us anytime, anywhere, any place to podcast. Thank you as always to Carson and Hoover. Thank you again to Brady Trantham. What a hero he is. We'll talk to you guys though next Wednesday, hopefully for Oklahoma fans, talking about a host of new portal happenings to kick off 2026. See you guys. Lovely hearts there from Hoover if you're watching on the YouTube page. That'll do it for us though. Sooners on the Side podcast. We'll be back next week. We'll talk to you then.